right, it is time for my week in film, or my weekly, I was going to say reading, my weekly watching wrap-up. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. This is going to be me sharing how my week in film went for week 2 of 2024. Last week I did share what my Q1 goals are for 2024, as well as the first films that I saw for the year, and I will leave that linked up above and down below. For a brief recap, what I have decided to do is my big goal for 2024 is simply to watch more movies and to reestablish my movie watching habit. But to support this goal, I have picked 3 categories of film that I am going to focus on for this first quarter, and I'm hoping to watch 10 films for each of those 3 categories, which are monster movies, dance movies, and newly added world cinema to Canopy. Canopy is a streaming service, and one of their categories is newly added world cinema. So that is the goal, to support the goal. And I am really excited about this. I'm still really excited about this, and I have watched more movies, so yay for that. Before I get to that, I do just want to say that I don't normally do videos this early in the year. I do find it hard because I'm still tired after the holidays and all that. So these videos through January will definitely be a bit more rambly, a bit more rough around the edges. I apologize for that, but that's just sort of where I'm at this time of year. And because I do want to share what I've been watching, I've decided just to go with it. And so they'll just be a little more rambly, and that's just going to be the truth of things. And I would rather do them than not do them. So they're going to be the way that they are. So I hope that's okay. So let's get to what I watched this week, starting with monster movie. So the monster movie of the week was Viking Wolf. This is a Norwegian film from 2022. It is on Netflix. I'm not sure if it's a Netflix original. Sometimes I find that a little hard to figure out. It does look like it was also released theatrically in Norway, from Wikipedia, I think. So I wasn't 100% sure. This actually, kind of does feel like it would be a monster movie, but the image I saw, when you log in on the site, was a wolf, an illustration of a wolf, and I was like, gosh, I just don't know. But it was tagged in Netflix as creature feature, so I'm like, okay, if it's a creature feature, I think we can be pretty confident that it is a monster movie. So this film is about a teen girl who moves to a family, including a teen girl who's the protagonist, moves to a small town in Norway where there are animal-like attacks that occur to the locals. And we follow this from her perspective of being the new girl in town situation, and then also from the perspective of her mom, who is a police officer. She's sort of a big city police officer now in a small town. So there's lots of dynamics that are familiar with, actually I find that those are dynamics we see a lot in books, right? But especially returning to a small town. I don't think this was her mom's hometown or anything. Anyway, that's not super what it's about. We're talking about animal attacks. What could it be? My goodness, I don't know. Or do we know? One of the interesting things about this film is that it actually starts with, the intro is this sort of historical, mini synopsis kind of situation of how it could be possible, or is it possible, or did happen in history, of a wolf coming from Normandy, so coming from France, to Norway. And it's filmed differently, it's filmed historically, it's got some interesting illustrations and stuff like that, and I really like the text, and I really like how they told this sort of mini story to intro the film, and then the film itself is a contemporary setting. But the challenge with that is I kind of feel like they're sort of they're telling us what this is, because it's is it supposed to be a mystery? Are we supposed to not know? But they told us. But often this does happen in horror movies. There's often someone, and it's usually someone who for some reason, most people don't believe them. In disaster movies, this happens with scientists, but there's usually someone, you know, that sort of knows, or they have to go to, or they have to get information from, and they tell them a tale. But this one, it actually, at the beginning of the film, they do this historical-ish intro and say, you know, so it kind of feels like, you know, you there's less mystery, because it kind of feels like, didn't they just tell us that this is what happened? But there is also mystery, because is it like that? Did something happen? Is there some kind of mutation? How old is this creature? Is it a creature? And so on and so forth. So for me, that was an interesting sort of, not necessarily framing device, but intro and setup that's a little bit different than often we see. Often we start the movie, it's just contemporary setting, something happens, what happens, we're not sure. This one actually gives you, like, it starts with a story that sort of anchors what could, did, should, might have happened historically, currently, you know, and but I do feel like with werewolf movies, you know, if it's a werewolf movie, there is an element of tension and disbelief and horror in terms of what's happening. So there is that element of sort of mystery, but like when you're gonna watch a werewolf movie, you kind of know it's a werewolf movie. So it's this weird sort of conundrum, you know? So I didn't feel I didn't feel like it was a bad choice or anything, but it was a bit of a surprising choice. And actually, interestingly enough, they also did have a character that was like the wise old character that nobody believes. I don't know if they were wise, that being said, so it's not necessarily a Polonius situation, but that often is something that happens in a lot of film. They have someone, but people don't believe them. Anyway, but I thought this film, it had a lot of the, you know, calling cards for werewolf movies, had lots of fear, trepidation, disbelief, gruesomeness when it gets gruesomeness, and again, the old, wise, disbelieved person. I did feel that was a little underdeveloped, but it was an interesting element, and I do like that element in the films. And it also was quite a slow build, I thought. And I thought one of the things I really appreciated about this film is that it centered, I thought it was pretty centered on how people would actually react in some of the gruesome situations in terms of the animal-like attacks, like how like an actual human being would respond in that situation, as opposed to a lot of horror movies where it's just like action and you're just waiting for the mean people to get picked off and those kinds of things. Those are less, I watch less and less in those as the years go on. So this one I actually liked how it was more dramatic, in the sense that I felt like not melodramatic, but like actually like showed like a human side to things, which I really appreciated. I'm sure some people will feel like that is less like fun or might feel more slow, but I thought it was an interesting, it humanized things, and therefore I had a stronger emotional reaction to the situation and to the characters, and I thought that was an interesting, good journey to go on. Now, as someone who has watched a lot of horror movies and watched a lot of werewolf movies, I could really like see where this is going. But again, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because I mean, but if you hadn't seen a lot of them, I think there would be some good surprises in here. But if you have seen a lot of them, you sort of know what to look for. And I will also say that for me, I also liked that often some of the really intense stuff was brief. But if you're I think one of the draws sometimes to werewolf movies is also the effects, because there can often be really, really cool effects. And I think that there were some of the things that you always look for with werewolf movies. I did a werewolf movie like marathon many years ago, so I have sort of very like I'm sort of like looking for this and this, and they had a lot of the elements that you look for. But I would also say there was a lot of sort of like close cuts, quick cuts, creative lighting, inferred things. So it's not necessarily, there was also some pretty, great effects, but it wasn't, but sometimes it was brief. And so if you're in it for that, I don't know how much, not saying there isn't as much, but I feel like it's not the focus. For me, the focus really for this one was on the story and the characters and their journey, and I really liked it for that. I will also say that this gloriously passed the Bechdel test, or the Bechdel test, which is, if you're unfamiliar, it requires a film to have two women or two female characters talk to each other about something other than a man, which or a male character, like, which shouldn't be hard to pass, but I challenge you to look back on the last 5 films you saw and see how many, if any, passed it, because it's shocking how often films don't. This passed it gloriously. We have the protagonist, who is a high school student, and then we have her mom, who is a police officer. The mayor is a woman, and the coroner is a woman, and all of them talk to each other, or like different people, the groupings of them talk to each other about the actual events of the film, which shouldn't be that hard to pass, but it did. So I was really, really happy about that. So that was Viking Wolf. And I will say, it's interesting, it wasn't my first choice. I did have it on a list. I did, of course, make a list of a whole bunch of both monster movies and dance movies, because I was going to watch something on Tubi, but for some reason my Fire Stick, the internet and my Fire Stick for Tubi was just, they were just not talking to each other. They must have had some words, and then they didn't want any words, and it just wouldn't work. So I was like, oh my gosh. So this ended up being, I think it was when I was looking through Netflix, it was one of the first things that I ended up writing on my list. Once I saw that it was Creature Feature, I was like, all right, we're in good hands here. Okay, on to dance movie. So the dance movie of the week was Work It. This is from 2020. It is an American film, and it was again on Netflix. I think this is a Netflix original, and this is about a very driven high school student, again, who is a driven high school student who believes the key to her successful application to the college of her dreams lies in being in a dance troupe. However, they don't know how to dance. So that's the twist here. It's a dance film where the protagonist is not a dancer. So this one had a lot of good fun in it. It is more so, I would say, a comedy, a coming of age kind of situation. I really enjoyed the friendship between the protagonist and her best friend, who is in a dance troupe and is a dancer and actually has their own YouTube channel. With their own TV show that's got like 3 seasons on YouTube originals. So that was interesting to see. And it's sort of like, it's comedy. It's a little like cringe comedy. It was really intense. I'll link it up above if you want to see her channel. So that was really interesting. I definitely rabbit holed when researching all of these films yesterday. But this film, so we're following someone very driven, she's got a positive attitude and a list, and it's gonna make it happen. And I mean, like, that is just a character that I tend to, I don't know what the right word is, like, have simpatico with, positive attitude and list, it's gonna happen. But like, she doesn't know how to dance. And so one of the things and I got it pulled in, I chose this one because somewhere in the description on Netflix sort of said like a ragtag group of friends or a ragtag group of people form a dance troupe. And I was like, awesome. I'm always going to say yes to a ragtag group, always, regardless of the situation. But I will say with this one, and there is a ragtag group, so that was true, but I didn't feel like they ended up being a strong focus of the film, or that they even became sort of like friends or even learned about each other that much in terms of that. And I really would have liked to have more focus on the entire dance troupe, but it really was more about the protagonist. And that actually is a bit of I would say that was a little meta in that sense. I felt a little bit, but one of the things I do give some leeway to dance movies for that, because sometimes, the people in dance movies, they could be dancers, but not necessarily actors. And then we also get the situation where we have actors who are not necessarily dancers, and then working with that together to make it a go. I don't necessarily know that about the people that are in the film, but I do feel like that can be the case. So I give some leeway on that. However, I really would have liked more development and more, like, simply more lines for some of the dance troupe, because I thought they were really great characters and I would have wanted to see more from that. But it is a bit more about the protagonist and her journey to make this happen. But there is that thing of, like, persistence, but not acknowledging when things might not be going well, which, again, don't relate to that at all. But no, I'm a realist. I'm a what's that called? Optimist, but I'm also a realist. So it's not necessarily about that. But it has a lot of the things that you look for in a dance film. Learning to dance montages, there's a big rivalry, the group of misfits, great friendships, and even has a splash of romance. So it's really got, like, all of the things that you look for, and even, of course, leading up to a competition, because, of course, so I thought it was a lot of fun. But I would say, again, this is a bit more of a comedy than a dance movie in that sense. And like the film last week, Time to Dance, I was a little disappointed in this one because they didn't talk about the relationship between music and dance. So a lot of the dance sequences or the dance learning sequences, there was no, like, how to understand the music. And I'm like, you're learning to dance. You have to, like, there's the physicality element of it, but you have to hear and feel the music. If you're going to be dancing to music, you have to understand the relationship between movement and music. And neither film, the other film was about people who were all dancers, so they didn't need to have that. But I missed out on the having the Latin ballroom dance in the film from last week. So for this one, I wanted that relationship between music and movement to be, something discussed. And that's why I think of it as more of a comedy. It's, whether or not she was a dancer or a basketball player or a chess player, it could have been any of those things. Maybe not chess, because there was a group dynamic, and I don't think people play group chess. I guess you could be on a team and play against each other, but it's a single person sport, right? So there's no group chess. Euchre, could have been euchre. Bridge. Anyway, but like, whether or not it was dance or not was not super important. So for me, I missed out on that. But there was a fair amount of dancing, there was a fair amount of dancing, and but it was a bit more centered on the comedy. One other interesting side note about this, and I was wondering, like, through a lot of this, I was kind of like, familiar. It was filmed in Toronto. So it is an American film, but it was filmed in Toronto. I live in Toronto. And especially where the protagonist lived, I was like, gosh, that really looks like the Annex. So, and which is like, St. George to Bathurst and College to like Bloor and North. And yeah, and it really, I was like, really, because that is just like, but I will say they did a good job, because there was not one particular landmark or anything that I noticed. It just felt familiar, and it's set for, she wants to go to Duke, and I actually don't know where that is, but it's only set in the States, but it was filmed in Canada, or in Toronto, so, which is obviously in Canada. So yeah, so that was a lot of fun, and I am glad that I watched it. Next up, the newly added World Cinema to Canopy. Pick of the week was Sakra, I think that's how you pronounce it, and this was the film that I was hoping to watch last week, but I needed a shorter film, so I picked something else. But this was the film that I wanted to watch. It is starring Donnie Yen. It actually is also directed by Donnie Yen, and it is from 2023. It is a co-pro between Hong Kong and China, and it is in, I think, did I not write it down? Oh, I forgot to... I got all, okay. I believe the version I saw was, the audio was in Cantonese, but Wikipedia lists it as Mandarin and Cantonese, and it was definitely at least partially dubbed. So that was a little surprising to me as the viewer. I didn't expect to have that, but there were some scenes and some characters I'm like, oh, that's definitely dubbed, like, without question. So, but I did watch it with subtitles, and so I believe the version I watched was in Cantonese. So this was adapted from the novel Demigods and Semi-Devils by Jin Yong, and it is a particular genre of film, a particular genre of book, which I'm going to try and pronounce. I should have written it out, and I did listen to a couple of videos on YouTube to try and get the pronunciation. I've heard that the person that I listened to said you can say wuxia, but it's closer to wuxia film, so Wuxia. So that is the style of film it is, and the style that the book that it was based on is. So this is a historically set martial arts epic, and with a little bit of magic, and we follow Donnie Yen's character, who is accused of a crime and has to go on a journey to learn more about his past, the people around him, and sort out what happened, what didn't happen, learn from the past, journey of self-discovery. You probably get the vibe of that. So he needs to uncover truths, as well as, of course, possibly betrayals. So this one had a lot going for it. I really enjoyed the action sequences. I really loved the epic feeling of it. There was a lot of horse riding and sweeping landscapes and beautiful like scenes, like scenery and settings and stuff like that. And then also the martial arts was really great, of course. I mean, I knew that, but I was not expecting the sort of element of magic, and it's not. I think it's a specific part of the genre, so it wasn't explained, but I think that's normal, because I think if you are familiar with it, you understand it. And some of the moves have different names and stuff like that, and sometimes they say the names of the moves that you're doing, and that feels familiar with other works I have watched or read, and I really liked that element. And I think it's just one of those things, the more familiar you are with the genre, the more smooth the transition is. Like, I know for me, I watch a lot and read a lot of urban fantasy, and I'm like, I just get it. So I feel like this is just like, I need to watch more of it to understand it better, and I'm well willing to do that. So this might end up being a category for future, because I really enjoyed that element to it. I also one of the things, I did have some challenges with this one, mostly because there's this sort of like look into the past to find out the truths of things, and there's so many different groups of people, and who is going to support him, or who is going to be against him, and why, and what's the history of each of the different individuals and each of their different groups, and what are their motivations, and who's telling the truth and not telling the truth. That is like my kryptonite. So that's akin to sort of like espionage films, where I just assume everyone's telling the truth, and usually, obviously in espionage films, it's not the case. And so for this, if there was anyone who said one thing and did another, I was like, I don't get it. It's like, Shannon, they're not telling the truth. I feel like I have to tell myself, remember, people could be lying, or you don't know what their motivations are, or their motivations may change. So for me, sometimes the plot, I had a hard time figuring out who was motivated by what, and those kinds of things. I also found it it felt a little bit confusing that the crux of the plot and the story is based on a crime. So he is accused of a crime. And I'm like, as the viewer, it felt very obvious to me that I don't think he did it. But I was surprised that he doesn't come out and say that. And I didn't know if I'm missing something in terms of like, that's, if you're accused and if there's any evidence, it doesn't matter what you say. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain things, like if you, of a Knights of the Round Table kind of era, if someone throws down the gauntlet, and you pick up the gauntlet, you have to fight. And whoever wins that fight has supported that is the truth of the situation, regardless of the truth. So it felt sort of like akin to that. And I think that's like, I think I was missing a piece in terms of the dynamic of the situation. But I kept on being confused of like, why doesn't he just say he didn't do it? Like, and then I was like, and then I started going, did he do it? Because I'm like, I don't think he did it, and like, so that was a bit, that held me back a little bit in terms of the story, but it's more about him going and finding out things from different people, things from his past, and those kinds of things. So the focus wasn't on the mechanics, basically. Like, I was trying to understand their, like, the judiciary system, but there was no denying in the scenes where that was that, for him to disprove what someone said, he had to go away and find information, not just say, I didn't do it. So it was, but for me, I was like, I don't get it. So, but that's fine. I'm just like, I'm not familiar with, but it was clear that was on my end. So anyway, but I did enjoy the action. I did, the story is vast. I looked up the work that it's based on, and it's like 5 volumes and like 17 to 2,600 pages. I would love to read it, but as far as I could tell, it hasn't been translated. So, which is a big bummer, but because I like the story, and the story is intricate. Oh my gosh, like all of the different allegiances and dynamics and histories and motivations and all of that. It was really like, I almost feel like they should have made it into like 2 films, or maybe this is even to be the beginning of a series or something like that, because there was so much going on. But I thought they really packed a lot in, and really got a really good story. And it was pretty long. It was like 2 hours and 10 minutes, 2 hours and 20 minutes. And there was a lot. So the one thing I would say, and this, is often the case with historical epics with action and adventure, sadly, there weren't a lot of women characters, and the ones that were in it were very much these sort of like archetypes, the standard archetypes that we tend to get, including like a damsel in distress kind of situation. I think that like it was like, the relationships and the dynamics that were there were good, but I just miss that when that's not part of the story. I miss it when we just get the sort of like archetypes. That being said, I think probably almost every character in this film was an archetype of some sort. And I think that often happens when you're working with a particular genre, you get that, but I miss it when there was one female character that was not in it that much, that I thought did sort of have a different take on things, and that was nice, and I did appreciate that. I just would have liked more, throughout the entire film. Anyway, but I'm really happy that I ended up watching Sakra. I didn't realize it was directed by Donnie Yen, so that was a real treat. I don't think I did. I know that I inferred that maybe it could be a start of a series. There's nothing to support that. That's just me like talking. I don't think there's any it didn't feel, well, I feel like it felt, any epic feels like there could be more, right? There could be more, but I didn't feel unresolved in that sense. And they even helped you out a little bit on that one, which I kind of appreciate, because again, it was a lot of moving pieces, and sometimes I was trying to, understand the story. I also felt like it felt understand all of the different relationships and dynamics. I also felt like it had a lot of heart to it too. Like I felt like I appreciated the emotional journey. Although I didn't always understand some people's motivations and choices, I do feel like there was I didn't understand it, but I didn't think it was confusing. I think I was missing the context, and that's fine. So, but I do feel like I would like to watch more, how do you say it? Wuxia films. If I'm doing that horribly, I really do apologize, but I tried my best to find some good references. And because, just historical-ish, action, adventure, epic, and a little magic, more of that, please. So I'm really, really excited about that. So that was my film for the week. So I am thrilled that was 3 films, 2 weeks in a row. I'm doing great so far. So I've watched 6 new films this year, and my total count is now 4,786 films seen. So 214 to go to the big 5K. I don't think that'll happen this year. Who knows? It's not impossible. But every little film, every little long, all of the films count. And I'm really excited about how this project is going. I feel like it's a really good range of things. Although I did watch 2 historical action martial arts film 2 weeks in a row for my Canopy pick. So maybe I should pick something different next week, or maybe not. Maybe I will just pick more, historical martial arts films, because I mean, I can never get enough of that. I just love it. So anyway, those are the 3 films that I watched this week, and those are, so I'm happy that that is going well. I am looking forward to more monster movies, more dance movies, and more newly added world cinema to Canopy. So let me know how your how your film year is going so far. Have you picked any goals? Have you watched anything new? Did you, like me, have any trouble with Tubi? I was all set to watch this shark movie from 1975 with Yaphet Kotto. Maybe that'll be on deck next week. So anyway, let me know how your film watching year is going so far, and I will be back soon with another video. Thanks so much for watching. Oops, upside down.